long ago, when the world was still young.
Jim, you used the wrong CD. I'm sorry, it was the wrong. Just put the other one in. Okay, let's try again. Just put it in. Yes, that one. The blue. No, that one. Yes. Okay, hit play.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Storytellers Podcast. I am your host, Peter Lewis, and not only am I the host, I'm also creative director, creative designer, executive director, producer, lighting sound guy, and I'm even my own coffee runner. I know, quite the portfolio. So by this point, you're probably sitting here asking yourself quite a few questions. Who is Peter Lewis? Why does his voice sound so good? And what is he doing with a microphone? And why is he starting a podcast? Well, I can answer most of those questions. So today is a very exciting day for me because it is day one of me creating this podcast called The Storytellers. And so before I get into any sort of content or anything like that, I really just wanted to get on and introduce myself as the host, but then as well, just share a story about me and my storytelling experience. But before we jump into story time, let's rewind. What is the Storytellers Podcast? So it started a few days back when I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I said, hey, I have this idea for a podcast, and I don't know what to call it. I have an idea of the content I want to have, but I'm not quite sure what I want to do with it yet. And he said, oh, you should call it the Storytellers. And I was like, okay, I will. And so here we are, episode 1 of the Storytellers. We'll call this the pilot episode. So what I want to do with this podcast is capture the essence of storytelling. What does that mean? Well, let's look at it in a simple form. There's an author who told a story. He wrote a book. You know, that's probably the most common way that we think of storytelling, but it's far, far beyond that. See, in my mind, anyone who puts their hands to something has a story to tell, and the way they create whatever they're doing tells that story. Maybe it's something along the lines of someone had a personal experience and they took the emotions that they felt in that and they wrote lyrics to a song. And then they took the things that were around them and were inspired to create a melody that also finished that song. And it became a song that is now played on the radio. That's a really great example of storytelling. But beyond that, there are so many different avenues we can explore with this topic. Think of a chef, for example. Maybe the ingredients they choose are supposed to tell a story to your taste buds. How long was this fish in the river? What did it see when it was swimming down the banks? Was the water cold? Was it hot? How does that come across in the ingredients they chose instead of just saying, oh, this pairs well with this? That's what I'm looking to capture. And so while I will be doing some of my own original content on this podcast, different stories I've written, different ideas I have, just as a place for me to really dump my mind and all my thoughts, I want to make this a place where the people who are not really well known can come and share their stories, be interviewed, see what they're creating, and really celebrate the art of storytelling in whatever way they're doing it. So that's my goal, and that's what I'm going after. Now, granted, today I don't have someone to interview, so I figured I would just share a story of my own. So why am I podcasting? Who am I? Why do I even remotely have an interest in doing this? So it all kind of starts back when I was a kid. Back in 1999, Disney's Tarzan was released, and that movie was very pivotal for that time period. What was cool about it is not only did it push the threshold of animation, but it also had one of the most memorable soundtracks known to man. Some of the songs are still played today. You know, what was really cool about it is most of it was composed by Phil Collins, who is one of my biggest inspirations, both in music and in drumming. I played drums for many, many years as well. So if you ever hear tapping on the table, I apologize for not editing that out. It's a passive habit that I have, but I love drumming. Anyway, so Disney's Tarzan came out, and Disney Channel, for throwback, those of you who remember, they did a special where they went behind the scenes and showed the creating and the animating and the artists who made this film what it is today. Now, when they had a special segment on Phil Collins, I remember he was in a stage in a studio, and he was sitting there, and he had all these different trash cans lined up around him, and he was just explaining, holding them up and showing, oh, I used this one to make this sound, and oh, I thought this fit this character really well, so I used this. And watching him just sit there and sing and play trash cans, I'm like, that looks like the funnest job in the world. That's what I want to do. And so that led me on this path that I've been on for the past few years now. I took some acting classes just to see what acting is like. I had a little bit of vocal coaching. I've recorded a few side projects and some really special projects with some friends of mine. Played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and recorded some of those, which I'm sure those things will probably surface at some point. God, I hope not, but they might. And it just led me to this place of, man, like I just love telling stories and I love being a part of helping other people tell their stories. And so for me, this is really much the beginning stages of my journeys in voice acting, where my hope is that by creating interesting content of my own, obviously it's for me to get myself out there, because I love telling stories and I want to help people tell their stories, even if it is just lending my voice to become the character that they see and hear. But then for everyone else, I want it to be something where, we already have stories that are told and they may never have, the big budgets or the opportunity to have publicity. And I want to bring those people in and just hear about what they did to make their stories and their items and their creativity, what they infused into everything that they're doing. So other than that, that's pretty much what you can expect from this podcast. Probably some terrible, terrible, awfully recorded voice recordings of myself trying to be people that I'm not, but then some really, really cool creative people coming in and sharing their stories. So guys, I'm so excited to get this podcast finally going. I can't say how often these episodes will come out, and I can't promise that they're going to be edited 100% beautifully. Editing is not my strong suit, but it's something I'm working on. But for me, I really wanted to leave some of this just undoctored because I love authenticity as well. And I want you guys to hear, I'm not always perfect with my words. I'm not always going to have this beautiful, polished thing. I just want this to be a really human podcast where you just get to hear really people where they are, and just celebrate those things as well. So that's all I have. I'm thinking that this first episode will go up probably end of today. Today is April 24th. And, from here, I'll probably start off with just reading some of my favorite segments from my favorite storytellers, maybe some audiobooks, or, on my Instagram, I'll probably post a video and then I'll talk about it on here. So there's still a lot to come. I will let you guys know how to stay in the loop, how to be notified about these things. I'm still getting used to the platform. So if there's the ability to subscribe to me, and hopefully we'll have a really good time exploring storytelling. But that's all I have for today, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. And thank you very much for investing your ears to the sounds of my voice. I appreciate that. Have a phenomenal day.